today is the press in politics. Mr. Zheng has played a very key role in Hong Kong politics for many, many years, since the drafting of the Basic Law up to the preparatory committee for the handover of Hong Kong to Chinese rule. And in more recent years, of course, through all the debates of national education, and of course currently with Occupy Central. So he's has his fair share of participation of politics in Hong Kong. Mr. Zheng is also an educator. He was a principal of Pui Kyu Middle School for many years and is also involved with the Open University. I think it's apt today that he is here to speak to us, given that this evening people like yourself, students, are having a conversation with the government about the current movement. The relationship between the press and people in the political arena in Hong Kong has been a complicated one, and I think Mr. Zheng is going to enlighten us on that. He's going to speak for about an hour or so, and that will then be followed by question and answers. The question and answers, of course, can be in Chinese or English. Okay? So, over to you, Mr. Zheng.
Thank you, John. Good afternoon, everybody. I am sorry I'm keeping some of you from your lunch, but I guess those of you who have been spending your time in the streets lately must have got used to flexible meal times. I'm not going to make any attempt to analyze the complicated relationship referred to by Jenny between the press and politics. In the next hour or so, I try to tell you what, through the eyes of someone like me, who has been involved in politics for a number of years, how does the press, or what part does the press play in our life, in all the political disputes, political campaigns we've been through. It has often been said that in politics, perception is reality. People have told politicians never to complain about the public having a wrong perception of these people, of the politicians, complaining that the reality is not actually what the public are seeing. It's no use, because perception is reality. And what creates perception, public perception? What decides the shape public perception takes? The press. So this is it. Perception is reality, and the press molds perception. That is why the press is so important in the life of politicians. That is why no politician can afford to ignore the press. The reason, I think, is very simple. It is simple mathematics. Take an average politician in Hong Kong, for example. Take one of my colleagues in the Legislative Council. I think the average LegCo member perhaps meets his voters, meets his constituents about once a week. A particularly hard-working one may do it more often. Let us say a Legislative Council member goes to his office and meets his constituents 5 evenings every week. That is rather unlikely for the average legislator. But there are some of my colleagues who are really very hardworking. So let's say this legislator goes to his office 5 evenings a week, meeting his constituents. Now, you have to spend at least 10 or 15 minutes for each of your visitors, right? It's not too long. So you can see at most 4 to 6 visitors in an hour. And suppose it is a 3-hour evening, every evening. That means every week you can meet about 100, less than 100 members of the public in your neighborhood. 100 of your constituents every week. Now suppose this same legislator also goes to a mass rally or to a more massive meet the people session once every week, right? We sometimes do it if our constituency is in a public housing estate, because it's most convenient. We just take up an open space in a housing estate, and then we use our loud hailers to call the people down after dinner, right? And they could come down and we talk to them about housing, about elderly care, about any public policy they may be interested in, right? And if you are popular enough, if you are good enough, you may be able to attract, again, up to about 100 people from within the whole estate. So suppose you go to one of these meetings every week, and you get to talk to 100 people. It's quite a feat, actually. So that means every week you can meet face to face with about 200 of your constituents, right? And let me assure you, this is quite a remarkable achievement for my colleagues in the Legislative Council. So throughout a year, if you work 50 weeks a year, taking a break at the Chinese New Year, that means you meet about 10,000 people every year, face to face, assuming, of course, that there is no overlap, right, in the audience of your various meetings and those visiting your office. 10,000 people in your constituency every year. We have a 4-year term. That means within your whole term, you can meet your constituents face to face, about 40,000 of them. Less than 10% of the eligible voters in your constituency, right? Even you are as hardworking as that. And I assure you, not too many of my colleagues in the LegCo can afford to spend so much time with their constituents. Even if they do, at most you can meet 40, 50,000 people throughout your whole term, right? By comparison, if you say something clever or naughty and get reported in the newspaper, get reported in the press, then the readership can be as much as 500,000 or even 1 million. Just compare that, right? Last week, we had a 3-day debate on the Occupy campaign and the way the government, especially the police, had been handling it, right? 61 members spoke in the debate. We have altogether 70 members. 61 of the members spoke. Among them was a colleague of mine in the DAB, the Honorable Leung Ji-Chao, one of the least known members, I must say, among the 70, right? And what did he say? He said the umbrella is a weapon, because Wang Fei Hong. That's a Chinese Kung Fu master in Guangdong in the last century. Wang Fei Hong, very well known in Hong Kong. Because Wang Fei Hong used an umbrella as a weapon. This got broadcast on television. Right? Evening news and then the morning news the next day. And nearly all the newspapers quoted him. And now everyone knows. Everybody is talking about Leung Chi-cheng's this quote, right? The umbrella is a weapon. And suddenly he becomes one of the best known legislators. When I first got involved in politics, I was told by the veterans, for a politician, no publicity is bad publicity. It's always good publicity. So you got a lot of publicity. So you compare. If you get yourself reported in the press, then at once you can reach all of your constituents. Okay? Maybe it's only a couple of minutes, or even 40 seconds. You reach all your constituents. So it is fair to say that to all the politicians, the most effective way to reach your constituents is always through the press. We reach 90%, over 90% of our constituents through the press. So that is why Barack Obama says in his book, The Audacity of Hope, he said the media is the filter through which a politician's votes are interpreted, his statements are analyzed, his beliefs are examined. The media is the filter through which a politician's votes are interpreted, his statements are analyzed, and his beliefs are examined. And Obama goes on to say, I am who the media say I am. I say what they say I say. I have become what they say I become. So this is the media, this is the press in politics. And that is why all politicians have to pay a lot of attention to the way they handle the press, they handle the media. Now, throughout my years of dealing with media, or the years of the media dealing with me, there are a few things which have struck me as characteristic of the way media operate. The first thing I realized after making a few very serious mistakes was that the press, or the media in general, they like simplicity. They hate complexity. They want everything to be simple. So for one thing, when they ask a question, no matter how complicated the question is, they always want a yes-no answer. Huh? If you say, in response to a question from the media, look, this is rather a complicated question. You can look at it from 3 different angles. Then they turn away. All right? And then they'll complain, why can't you give a straight yes-no answer? And then the next day you appear in the press as Zhang Yuxing refuses to give a straight answer, or he gave an evasive answer, or he tried to dodge the question, right? So it is either yes or no. Do you support or do you not support the umbrella campaign, umbrella revolution, right? Do you think the police were right in using the tear gas against the protesters? You have to answer yes or no. There is no other admissible answer, right? And then of course, the fact is that nearly all these questions can hardly be answered by yes or no, and you get caught, you get yourself in trouble answering yes or no. Last year, before Vice Chancellor is here. Am I supposed to stop? Please tell me if okay. Last year, when the discussion about Hong Kong's electoral arrangements for choosing chief executive in 2017 was beginning to gather steam, was when people were beginning to pay attention, and there was a general belief that it's going to be very difficult for any proposal from the government to get the support of a two-thirds majority. For those who are not familiar with it, if we want to change the way the chief executive is chosen, we have to change Annex 1 to the Basic Law, and that requires, among other things, a two-thirds majority support from the Legislative Council, right? And people were saying, look, it is very difficult. And some people were counting my vote. Again, for those who are not familiar with this, it is a convention in our legislature for the President of the Legislative Council not to vote, to sort of remain impartial. So my predecessor, Rita Fan, never voted during her term in office as LegCo president, and I have never voted in the last 6 years. But the last time when an electoral package came to the LegCo for this amendment to the Annex 1 of Basic Law, it was in 2010, I told the public, because I believed it would be much better for Hong Kong to have the package passed than have it rejected. So although, I told the public, although I take my job as the president of LegCo very seriously, there are, to me, more important things than staying on as president of LegCo. I have promised, when I stood for election to this post, that I would not take part in any voting in the council. However, if I had to vote in order for the electoral package to pass, I would vote and then I would resign, because I had broken my promise, right? That was what I said last time in 2010. Fortunately, I was saved from having to vote and resign, because the whole of the Democratic Party voted for the package, and so it got through very comfortably. And then last year, people asked me the same question. If your vote is required to have the 2017 electoral package passed, are you going to vote? I said, well, like last time, if indeed my vote is so crucial, I will have to vote. However, I said, because at that time, I was making a lot of statements in public saying, I hope that the central government would come up with decisions about the 2017 elections, which would be supported by the majority of people in Hong Kong, right? Which would win the heart, win the support of the majority of people in Hong Kong. And in that case, I have no doubt the majority of my colleagues in the electoral will also support it, right? I was saying things like that. So in answer to that question, I said, well, I do believe that, I do hope that it would not be the case that if I'm not voting, then the package cannot go through. I certainly hope that it will be supported by a majority of my colleagues. Otherwise, I said, if the proposals are so unpopular that without my vote, it would definitely be rejected, then it is questionable whether I should support it or not. That's what I said. Too complicated, right? And so the press, the reporters, who listened to my answer, took it as a no, right? So the next day, it was reported in the press, Zhang Yuxing said, he doesn't think it's worth voting for the package if it is not supported by a majority of people, if it's not popular enough, right? And then, that was last year. And then in a couple of weeks or a month ago, after the Standing Committee of National People's Congress made the decision, I was asked the same question. Are you going to vote for it if your vote is crucial? Then I said, which was honestly what I was thinking, right? I still believe it is much, much better for Hong Kong to have an electoral package passed than nothing. So if it requires my vote for the package to pass, then I'm going to vote. Right? So that means a yes. And then I got quite a few commentaries, one of them coming from the Hong Kong U student magazine. Look at this man. Less than a year ago, the answer to this question is no. Now he is saying yes. Can you believe him? Right? So this is it. Right? Many of my colleagues and myself, of course, very often we have to face this dilemma. You're thrown a question and you're required to answer either yes or no. Right? Then you have a choice. Either put yourself into a difficult position by answering yes or no, or put yourself in a dangerous position, or be seen as evasive, right? Not willing to honestly tell the public what you really think, and so on. Right? So this is one example of this rule that any comments you make, any answer to questions put to you by the press must be simple. You cannot even complain that your answer has been taken out of context. Back in 2003, when we had the first mass demonstration in Hong Kong, right? 2003, July the 1st, we had 500,000 people walking in the streets. And then after that, shortly after that, we had the district council elections that year, 2003. My party lost a large number of seats. I was then chairman of my party. And so I had to step down as chairman because under my leadership, the party suffered very serious defeat in a general election. So I stepped down. There was a press conference for me to announce my resignation. And one of the reporters asked me this question. Look, Mr. Deng, do you think the unpopularity of the government has damaged the image of your party? Do you think, he meant, do you think the defeat of your party in this election was due to the unpopularity of the government? Then I said, well, of course my party is seen by everybody, seen by the Hong Kong public, as a party always supportive of the government. We always, I guess we are very supportive of the government among all the parties all the time. So as such, we understand we inevitably will have to share both the credit and the discredit of the government, right? When the government is popular, of course, will fare better. Governments unpopular, of course, will lose out. I said we have to share the credit and discredit of the government. In Chinese, 榮辱與共. And then I added, for good humor, at times like this, of course, we understand that there's a lot of discredit and very little credit. I said, 我哋同政府嘅榮辱與共。不過今日咧，可能就辱好多，榮就好少啦。All right? Everybody laughed, right? Just like you did. Okay? It's a sort of a cursory remark. And then, of course, next day, the headlines were 曾鈺成支持政府有辱無榮. Zhang says, if you support the government, it's always discredit, never get any credit. You get discredit, no credit. And this comment has become, a characteristic cliche of mine throughout the years. And even lately, I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday, I was quoted in one of the pieces in the newspapers. So, well, and then of course, when it first appeared, it wouldn't look good. I mean, it seems that I'm putting the blame on the government for our own failure, and it was, of course, not my intention. It had never been my intention, to do that, right? I tried to explain. My remark was very much taken out of context, but it's of no avail, right? So this is it. They like it. I mean, the press, they love this. Zhang Youxing said, supporting the government, 有辱無榮. They loved it. And so it sticks. It is stuck. And then there is another example, also coming from the year 2003. Actually, on July the 1st, on that day, the day when 500,000 people went into the streets. I was caught by a reporter shortly after the protest walk started. And she asked me, look, Mr. Deng, we asked someone in among the protesters, a young man, we asked him, why are you coming out to protest? Why are you walking with the protesters? And he said, the young man told us, it's Article 23 legislation we are against. If we do not come out today, we will not have any other chance of coming out to voice our opinion, right? If we don't come out today, we won't have any chance to come out in future. But that's what the students actually saying now. Huh? The protesters. If we do not fight for democracy today, then we won't have a future. And so the reporter asked me, what do you think, Mr. Deng? The young people believe that if they do not come out and protest today, they won't have a chance to protest tomorrow. And then I said, well, no, I don't think even if Article 23 legislation is passed, I don't think it will put a stop to people voicing their views in public. I don't think Article 23 is going to stifle, this freedom of expression. I don't think that's true. And then I said, if this young man said that, he was misled. He was misled. Guess what appeared in the press next day? Zhang, protesters were misled. Well, of course, I became public enemy number 2 on July the 1st, 2003. CH Tong was public enemy number 1. I was number 2. Even in front of Regina Yip. Right. Everywhere I went, during the several months after that, because as I told you, the district council elections took place 3 months after the July the 1st walks. And I had to go around, right, canvassing for my DAB teammates. Everywhere I went, people would come up to me and say, look, Mr. Zhang, I joined the protesters. I was not misled. No one misled me. How would I explain? Right? So it became an insult to all those who walked in the streets on July the 1st. Right? This politician said, you're all misled. So that's it. That's it, all right? A simple remark. Everybody saw it. Everybody got very angry. So this is the first lesson I learned. Huh? If you cannot find a clever way to simplify your answer, to put what you believe is a complicated line of reasoning in a simplified way, in a simple way, then the press will simplify it for you, all right? With an effect that you could not have expected. So this is the first thing. The second impression I got, shall I stop here? Okay. The second impression I got, the press are very good at, and they always want you caricature and stereotype. Caricaturing and stereotyping is something, public figures, especially politicians, have to put up with when they deal with the press. When I took part in my first election, all my colleagues, all those in my team, told me, look, Mr. Zhang, because before I got involved in politics, I used to be a school teacher and also a headmaster, right? So I always put a long face in front of my students. And then when I walked in the streets trying to, canvass votes, my advisors told me, look, Mr. Zhang, put a smile on your face, right? Put a smile on your face. And so, I look at myself in the mirror and try to, get away with the pleasant smile. I can. Despite all my efforts, however, to the press, I never smile. I only smirk or sneer. It's always smirking and sneering. Mr. Zhang is smirking and sneering. Yum yum 嘴笑. All right, I never smile. And that became my, characteristic whenever I appear. And these newspapers, magazines, they have dozens or even hundreds of my photos. Whenever I appear, they always keep, taking photos. And I guess they have different drawers for good, not so good, bad, very bad photos of any politician, right? So when you do something good, when they like you, they take a pleasant photo, put it in the paper. But most of the time, especially when I was, one of the main political spokesmen for DAB, most of the time, they were angry with me. So always they put these bad photos on the paper, right? And I got this is sort of a stereotype. Look, this is someone from the bad camp, right? Always with a smirk or a sneer on his face. And it is not only me. There are the press like to put all kinds of special features on each one of the politicians. In the first place, all the politicians are divided into two camps. You are either pro-government or 保皇黨, right? Royalists, or you are Democrats. You are the opposition, let's say. So you must belong to either one of these camps. You cannot be outside. You cannot be an outsider. You cannot claim to be independent of either of these two camps. So either you're a 保皇黨, you're a royalist, or to use a more sort of neutral term, pro-establishment, or you are Democrat, pan-Democrat, opposition. And then everyone in the pro-establishment camp, let's say, shares certain common features. First of all, you are thoughtless. You do not have any independent thinking. No, you cannot think independently. Right? You can only say yes to what Beijing says. This is the first feature, right? That is 保皇黨, royalist. You can never say no to any government proposal. And why do you still get so many votes in the elections? Because you have a lot to give out to the people. All right? The Chinese saying is 蛇齋餅種. Let's explain it in English. 蛇 is snake, refers to the snake feces. We are supposed to hold for the public at very low prices. Right? Now this autumn is coming. Autumn has begun. And the time for a snake feast has already arrived, right? 蛇齋 is a vegetarian fish. Because we appeal to elderly people. Most of our voters are old people and they like to 食齋, they like vegetarian food. So we hold, again, vegetarian feast for them. And 餅 refers to mooncakes. Right? We give out mooncakes. It's already past Mid-Autumn Festival, 中秋節, mooncakes. And 粽 is the rice dumplings we give away to people during the Dragon Boat Festival. Right? But let me tell you this. 蛇齋餅種 is not particular to the pro-establishment camp or to DAB. All the political parties give away 蛇齋餅種. They all do it. Right? But No one cares. This becomes a label for the pro-government, pro-establishment parties, because the general perception molded by the media, molded by the press, is these pro-government politicians, they do not think independently, they do not have any political ideals. They cannot win over the hearts of people by their, in the political debates, by telling people their political beliefs. No. They can only try to buy people's votes by giving out these goodies. So this is the kind of stereotype the press have produced. But it is not all negative. At the same time, many of the politicians coming from this camp, coming from the pro-government camp, especially, I must say, my colleagues in the DAB and also members of the FTU 工聯會, many people have the impression, again, reinforced by the press, that they actually work very hard to serve members of the public. That they actually can be very helpful if it comes to livelihood issues concerning the public. So these people are hardworking. These people do care for the well-being of the public. Only they do not have any political ideals. They cannot think independently. All right. So during the elections, especially at the district council elections, yes, many do vote for candidates coming from this camp because they believe that they work hard with the best intentions for the people in the neighborhood. On the other hand, the pan-democrats, because they are called Democrats or pan-democrats, they're always fighting for democracy. They believe in democracy. And by the way, the pro-government parties, because they are pro-government, because they are pro-Beijing, they must therefore, by definition, be anti-democratic, right? I have been protesting against this, but nobody believes me if I say, look, I belong to this camp, but I believe in democracy. No, you cannot. So you are either pro-government or you're pro-democracy. And those people in the pan-democrats camp, they're always fighting for democracy. They have very lofty political goals. However, they talk more than they do, right? They're always talking. They're very good at debates, especially in the legislative council. But they seldom appear within their constituencies. They do very little for people in the neighborhood, which I must say is unfair to them. I believe that my colleagues from the pan-democratic camp actually work at least as hard as, if not harder than some of us, right? For their constituents, including long hair, especially long hair. I've spoken for him in public. In case you don't know, long hair is a legislative council member by the name of Leung Kwok-hong, coming from New Territories East. He has a number of offices in his constituency, and he spends time working on cases coming from his constituents. And very often, what he has done is actually very helpful to his constituents. So it is not only a lot of talk, debates in the council. They work as hard. However, again, the general impression, again reinforced by the press, is that the pan-democrats, they only talk. Yes, they fight for democracy, and for that, Hong Kong people support them, but they seldom work hard within their own constituencies for their voters. But this is not true. But then this is the kind of stereotype the press has sort of molded, the press has created in Hong Kong. And you can't get away from it. And to me this is quite unfortunate. Because we all know that within either camp, within the pro-government camp or within the pan-democrats camp, there's a wide spectrum of different views, different attitudes towards issues like democracy or any public policy. But still, people are stereotyped. This is my second impression. And thirdly, again, as pointed out by Obama in his book, the press are more interested in controversies, conflicts, than in consensus. They always want the politicians to exchange insults to each other, right? They would like to hear or like to see politicians launching broadsides at each other. So if the most common practice of the reporters these days, especially the younger reporters, something happens, she goes to a member in one camp and says, "Look, Mr. Tong, what do you think of this? The police just used tear gas against the students. What do you think?" And then Mr. Tong said something. And then he would come to the other camp and say, "Look, Mr. Tam, Mr. Tong has just said this. What do you think?" And then Mr. Tam, of course, has to say something diametrically opposite to Mr. Tong's, right? He will say, "I strongly disagree with Mr. Tong." Now, if Mr. Tam says, "Well, there is some truth in what Mr. Tong has said. I think, I agree with most of what he said," then the reporter goes away and looks for someone else. All right? So, this is reporting. A news story would consist of a short paragraph telling you what happened, and then a lot of quotes from people from either camps, right? Hurling insults to each other. This is the kind of story they like. So, again, this is a kind of there is a kind of behavior modification mechanism working here. Because of this, so all the politicians, they know if they want to get in the news, as I said earlier, this is the best way to reach your audience, the best way to reach your constituents, right? Much more efficient than holding meetings in your office or in the open spaces in the public estates. You say something, make sure that it is reported in the press. So if you want the press to report it, it has to be fiery, it has to be controversial or provocative, right? You must criticize the government very strongly, right? It has to be insulting to someone, right? And then you get reported. So, and that is why, most of the time, when you watch the let's go meetings, the Legislative Council meetings broadcast live, if you ever did so, right? You will see that most of the time the members actually, hurling insult at one another, insulting remarks at other council members, at government officials, at the government. Because this is the kind of thing that the press and the media and television would be most interested in. You can be sure that it will be reported. So this is the situation we have. Now, coming to the end of my time, before concluding, let me say something more personal. I said earlier that some years back I got a very negative perception among the public because most of the press didn't like me. Things changed for me in the last 6 years. The change took place when I became the president of the Legislative Council. I partly expected that it would be easier for me to get a more positive impression in the press, being the president of the council. However, it turned out to be much, much better than I expected. In the first place, I never had to spend my time going to meet my constituents in person anymore. Because people now are seeing me every week at the council meetings, right? And most of the time, I'm sharing in a sort of positive light, because I was sitting there, high up there, in the seat of the president, in an authoritative position. It seems that, no matter how rebellious individual members are, I have the power to, order them out of the chamber whenever I like. I have the power to shut them up, all right? So they have to listen to me. And I become a sort of a symbol of authority in the electrical meetings. Right? And also, of course, whereas previously, as I said, I was one of the main political spokesmen of my party, the DAB. So very often I had to speak out on very controversial, very contentious issues. And every time I spoke, I knew I would have people within my camp who would very strongly support my position, support my view. But at the same time, I would have other people from the other camp, very strongly dislike my views. Right? So I was a controversial figure. It's my habit. I always want to make provocative remarks. Right? If I say something which is sort of, bland, doesn't arouse any interest from anybody, then I would think it would be a failure. So I would always like to make provocative remarks. And every time I spoke out then, I got very, very vigorous support from my camp. And then, of course, the other side, they would get very angry with me. So I never became a really so-called popular political figure. But after being a president, I had the best excuse, best pretext for not saying anything on any contentious issue, right? What do you think of June 4th? Do you think the Chinese government should 平反六四? Of course I have my views, but as president of LegCo, I don't think I should speak out in public on that, right? And then I was let off, right? 10 times out of 10, they would let me off with that. So whenever I see a chance to 抽水, say something which would give me credit, okay, I will go to the in front of the mic stand and say it. And if I believe that it's going to be controversial, right, I'll get this credit rather than credit, and then, you know, this is my protective shield. I'm president. I'm not going to talk of it. Right? Because, of course, most important reason is my colleagues in the LegCo, they're going to debate on it. Right? So I have to be impartial. So that's it. But because of that, for the last 6 years, you know, I never did anything really significant, but my popularity ratings simply rose. All right, that's it. That's a secret. Right? And then, you know, on the whole, today I can say that the press now are in general very kind to me, including those like Apple Daily or Oriental Daily. Used to be quite, you know, unfair to me, I must say. Including them, they're now very kind to me. To such an extent that in the last election, in the LegCo elections in 2012, right, 2 years ago, I went into the street as before during the election campaign, and I had an experience which never happened before. When I was, you know, talking to the passers-by, talking to the people in the street through a loudspeaker, I got young mothers taking their children to kindergarten or primary, crossing the road because they saw me. They brought their children to my side. They said, "No, take a picture with Uncle Zhang." Never happened before. All right? Never happened before. Imagine a politician with a smirk or a sneer on his face, always saying, you know, controversial things, with the mother bring their children to take a picture with them. No, never. But now, you know, this man here is pictured by the press as a sort of a symbol of impartiality, authority, right? Something like a judge, actually. And then they know me. They know me by appearance. I didn't have to hand out leaflets in the streets. They know me. Even when I go to, you know, buy a can of beans in the supermarket, right? The sales girl there, Mister, you look familiar to me. She couldn't identify me yet, but I look familiar, and it's good. You look familiar. Do you live around? Do you come here often? Right? I often got questions like this. And this, you know, is the power of the press, the power of the media. So this is it. This is, the last remarks I made, I want to tell everybody, you know, I don't have any reason to complain about the press at all, I mean, today. And, but the fact is, to come back to the quote at the beginning of my little talk, perception is so important in our public life. Perception is so important in politics, and the press. They are so important in molding perception. So let me tell you, many of you here, I believe, will become members of the press in future. And I tell you, our fate, I mean the fate of all the politicians in Hong Kong, are in your hands. So let me stop here and okay. Thank you very much.
Before we go on to the question and answer session, let's call upon our president, Professor Albert Chen, to present a souvenir to Mr. Zhang.
Before the questions, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Chairman Zhang again. I apologized. I was in a meeting and couldn't come for the early part, so I might have missed some very important parts. But I'm most enlightened today because, as Mr. Zhang quoted Obama, said, "We are not what we are not who we are, but what the press say what we are." That's very important. In fact, I wish he came here 4 years ago when I took up the president's job here. I think my job would be much better and easier if I knew what he just said. But what I would like to share with our students is because you'll be the future reporters, many of you at least, and I think you'll become very powerful people because, as Mr. Zhang just said, in Chinese we call the reporters emperors without a crown, 蒙明王代. You got the power because you can describe things that the whole world would believe is true. And that power can be dangerous because power can be very, what we call is power corrupts, and absolute power absolutely corrupts. So when you use that power, you must bear in mind that power comes with responsibility, and that's most important. You can only report what is true and nothing but the truth. You should let the world know exactly what it is really happening, rather than making up things to sell your idea, because the world depends on our honesty. So I trust our students will become the future leaders in the press, and your pen can be very influential for the society. I think with your very independent and very honest writing, Hong Kong will become a much better society. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now, we have booked this venue until 2 o'clock, so we have time for questions for Mr. Zhang. Okay, you.
先生您好，就是我看了您接受张洁平他的采访时候说到，说现在我们正进入了一个恶性循环，然后双方需要一个退场机制。我想问一下，今天晚上学联和政府的对话是您眼中认为的最佳的一个退场机制吗？谢谢。
Okay, the question is simple in English, right? It's talking about asking Mr. Zhang for his view on tonight's talks between the students and the government. What sort of strategy, exit strategy there is for both sides?
I don't think anyone seriously believed that the talks this evening would sort of give rise to agreements between the government and the students, which will make everybody in the streets happy and end this Occupy campaign. No, I don't think anybody would really believe that. Although many of us including myself, do think that the fact that the talk can take place and hopefully more talks, more contacts between the students or the protesters on one side and the government on the other in the days to come going to take place. We believe that this will sort of help to generate a more conciliatory atmosphere for all the stakeholders, for those taking part in the protest, and for the government, and for those who are, against this protest because they believe that their interests are being damaged, for them to sort of review, to look at the situation in a more rational, more unemotional way, and that may open up the possibility of a safety exit for everybody. We all know that the campaign, which has developed in the last 3 weeks or so, has become very much, let's say, leaderless. There is no universally approved leader of the campaign. So even if certain groups, certain factions among the protesters can come up with an agreement with the government, it is unlikely that they can satisfy everybody in the streets and make them go away. We have to. I'm afraid we still have to wait for some time before we can see a way out. So while we do hope that the talks will sort of help to create a better, more, as I said, more conciliatory atmosphere, I don't think we should put too high a hope on the talks. It's not going to stop the protest right away.
Okay, next question. No questions? Or
Hello, Mr. Zhang. I'm an international journalism student. Considering the current debate on the umbrella movement in the Electoral Council, as a president, how would you comment on some pro-establishment members trying to complain on the speaking or something related to what the Pan-Democrat has put like an umbrella on his desk? And do you think that this kind of complaint is constructive for the whole debate?
I think it is. Well, there are, including myself, there are 43 what you call the pro-establishment members in the Electoral, and only I think 2 or 3 of them complain. Right? So not all of them. I mean, there are certain behaviors, let's say, of the pro-establishment camp members which, well, not everybody would approve, let's say. Not everybody likes. But similarly, there are certain behaviors from within the Pan-Democratic camp which are very questionable, right? And as I said earlier about myself, whenever I spoke before as spokesman of DAB, I got lots of angry shouts from the other side, but at the same time I got lots of likes from my own camp. So if you are talking of Zhang Laiwan, right? or 种树根, let me tell you, they got a lot of likes from their own kind as well. So that's it. But let me ask you, did you or have you listened to the speech by God Pui Fan, Elizabeth Court? Never caught your attention? Never caught your attention? Her speech was put on YouTube and it got over 300,000 hits in less than 3 days. I think the latest figure, she told me yesterday, was over 420,000 hits yesterday morning. She spoke as one of the pro-government, pro-establishment legislators. It's easy. You just you can listen to her speech on YouTube. So, I mean, this is politics in Hong Kong. This is politics within the council chamber. Huh? We have members talking about Wang Fei Hong, using umbrellas as weapons. We have members complaining that bringing in the umbrellas, they are dangerous weapons and so on. But for me, my job is to stick to the rules of procedure. There are rules. If anything is done against the rule, I must disallow it. I must stop it. Right? Be it from the Pan-Democrat side or from the pro-government side. But if it is allowed by the rules, I cannot stop it. And as I told my colleagues from the pro-government side last week, I believe that bringing in those umbrellas to the chamber was not against any rule. So I didn't stop.
Okay, next question.
Mr. Zhang, I have a question about your view on the transparency of the politics and the media here. As you said, when we talk about transparency, people would like to see more debates on issues in the legislature. And compared to the situation in the United States, when the C-SPAN broadcast all the debates, sometimes without much audience, only the legislators would debate against each other, like you said, they throwing insults to each other. Do you think this kind of openness or transparency could increase the animosity of the public, or just kind of preaching to the choir, letting people express their anxieties, or would it be more helpful for the government to implement any policies which are crucial and sometimes more controversial?
First of all, we can't go back at all. We're becoming more and more transparent. The usual word, the Let's Go is working in a more and can only work in a more and more open manner. There are still a few meetings which are held behind closed doors, but we do feel pressure coming from time to time for us to open up those meetings as well. What is rather unfortunate for me is that although all our meetings are open, it seems that again the press, the media, are only interested in those that are, more fiery, or that are filled with members' antics, gimmicks. So I must admit, many of our meetings, which are also open, are very boring to watch. We have members from the various parties actually working in full cooperation on a number of very important bills, government bills. Those are the things that really count, right? If we pass a bill which is flawed, then it can do a lot of harm to the general public, right? To the interest of the public. So actually those are the areas where members should sort of work most carefully. And they do. They do. But, you know, these meetings of our bills committees are well, seldom, very seldom reported actually. Huh? Because they're not so, what would you say that? They're not so entertaining, right? They are not so entertaining. Hmm?
Okay.
So, yeah.
Sorry. Next question. Yeah.
Mr. Sung, we know that last night the Chief Executive, Leung Chun-ying, was interviewed by 3 foreign media. How would you comment on his media strategy after the umbrella movement as the most important political figure in Hong Kong?
As President of the Legislative Council, I should not comment on what the Chief Executive does. Well, surely Mr. Leung has a team of advisors planning for him, you know, his strategy in media management, I believe. So did Donald Tsang, his predecessor, and CX Tong as well. Of course, how well each of these teams performed, or the current team is performing, I mean, is for everybody's own assessment. I would say his advisors, perhaps, they are most aware of both the strengths and weaknesses of Mr. Leung. And they must have made the assessment. On the one hand, of course, if Mr. Leung comes out more often, faces all the media, all right, openly, and answer whatever question is put to him, then, I mean, many people would sort of feel that that's a more honest, more open attitude. However, then he will have to reckon, or his advisors will reckon with the possibility of, you know, a really difficult question being answered badly by him. And then that would take all the credit away. So they have to make this assessment. Huh? I can only think of, you know, we only able, competent, real politician we have seen in Hong Kong throughout the last 30 years was Chris Patten. I say this in a very, I know this is a very politically incorrect remark, right? But he is the kind of man, he is the kind of politician who will never hesitate to go in front of the media and answer whatever question put to him. He has the, you know, the confidence, and the skill to manage it. Not everybody has. So they have to balance, I believe.
Okay.
Hello, Mr. Zhang. I'm a third-year international journalism student, and I'm very much concerned about the latest movement and the development of the movement. So my question will be about that instead of the press, about the press. So my question is that, do you think that submitting a supplementary report to the central government would be a way out, would be a feasible way out for our current dilemma? Because, yeah, we can submit, you know, the situation has changed, and we can submit a supplementary report. Yeah.
No. This is not something the chief executive can do or is willing to do. And let me tell you, unfortunately, this is not something the central government would allow. One reason why it is so difficult to resolve our present situation is, on the one hand, the protesters, those who are taking part in the Occupy campaign, they believe the campaign itself has been a tremendous success. They never expected so many people to take part. The scale of the protest, the scale of the Occupy movement has far exceeded what everybody had expected. And so I think it is only right that they should claim it is a very remarkable triumph. Now that is why very few people among the protesters are willing to accept anything but, you know, the highest demands they have made. Why should we go? I saw this in your lift, right? Saw this poster on the wall of your lift. Retreat now, without getting anything. All right. So this is one side. On the other hand, I think it is not the a view of only a few government officials that this campaign in Hong Kong is beginning to resemble some of the so-called colour revolutions elsewhere. And what I have heard is that the central government has made it very clear to the SAR government, apart from to others, that both the central government and the SAR government cannot be seen by anyone to be making any concession because of this campaign. The reasoning is, if we give people the impression that by mobilizing enough number of people in the streets, they can force us, right, to concede to what they want, then, I mean, this would encourage others to follow suit. And you know what I mean, right? Not only in Hong Kong. So they see this as a very important line to keep, no concession whatsoever. So this is the problem. And shortly after the campaign started, actually, those who are, let's say, leading it in a way, realized this. They knew that the initial demands, at first they wanted CY to step down, right? The chief executive to step down, and they wanted the National People's Congress to take back the decisions, right? August 31st decisions. Well, they knew right at the start, or shortly after the start, that these were not going to happen. They knew that CY is not going to step down anyway. And the NPC decision could not be withdrawn. And they were looking for other things. And as far as I know, actually there had been communications between them and the government through various channels to sound out which perhaps lower demands would the government be willing to take. Very difficult. So you see this. If it is too low, then you can't satisfy the people. If it is something significant, then the central government will say, no, this is dangerous. You're telling the people, you know, this kind of mass movement can force us to make concessions. This is difficult. This is difficulty, right? So there is no easy way out. I'm sorry.
Okay, next question. Now, we don't have a lot of time, right? After this
Sorry.
one, maybe take one more question.
I've been talking too much, sorry.
Hello，你好，曾生，我想講咧，即係 媒體係可以無面之王嘅媒體係可以影響政治嘅。反轉過嚟咧，政治喺某一種程度上面都係控制媒體嘅喎。So my question is, how do you think about, at some extent, the politics have some control, some kind of control on the press, and how do you think about the trend of the freedom of expression in Hong Kong in the future? Thank you.
I think the politically correct answer to your last question is, of course, I have a lot of confidence in the press in Hong Kong, in the media in Hong Kong. I'm sure that the Hong Kong community, of course, also takes the freedom of the press, freedom of expression very seriously. It is a part of our core values. I'm sure all of us are going to guard it jealously in the years to come. I do believe that's the case. I do believe, honestly believe that. I don't think anyone, any government, can really take away press freedom from Hong Kong or from the people of Hong Kong. I don't think. In a sort of the kind of transparent system we have already got used to, I don't think anyone can do it. Can politicians or can politics influence the media? I don't know. I mean, I would very much like to say that it is a kind of sort of interactive process. The media and the players in the political arena. But it appears that most of the time, those who have the power to influence the media seem to have other priorities than perhaps to defer to the wishes of politicians or the government. But you see, one very important feature of our press environment in Hong Kong is we have a very competitive situation here. How many daily newspapers do we have? Only a dozen? Huh? I can see that there's fierce competition among the printed media, and although there are only two free TV stations in Hong Kong, they have to compete with other media as well. I think this is what makes our environment, our media environment, perhaps more healthy than in many other places. Sorry, I'm taking up most of the time.
Well, unfortunately, this has to be the last question, but we haven't got anyone from this side. How about the girl there?
Okay, thank you. So to solve the current dilemma or to ever build a functional democratic society, I think the press need to be in the role of holding constructive public discussions. But based on the reality of the press and the mechanism, how do you think we can achieve that?
Once again, please, achieve what?
The role of the press holding constructive public discussions.
Well, I guess the press is already playing that role, aren't they? Huh?
Constructively, because like a lot of things, like you talk about, the behavior mechanism, modification, and also sometimes just pan-democracy, just pro-Beijing.
Yes.
But I guess because I compare to the press in America or how the functions work constructively.
You sure the press in America more constructive than in Hong Kong? You sure? Huh?
What do you think? Yeah, I mean, anything that we.
But there is a sort of paradox. The moment we, especially the politicians, start to talk about or to think about making the press more constructive, I think people will be alert, the press will be alert against undue interference from politics. To me, despite all I have said in the last hour about the press, some of my remarks may be not very complimentary, but despite all that, I think we do have a rather healthy media environment in Hong Kong. We have, those who are very critical of the government, those who are very supportive of the government, and also those who, I think there are a couple of newspapers who have taken it upon themselves to sort of, try to make very serious contributions to encouraging a kind of constructive public debate on the most contentious issues in Hong Kong. I think there are those who are actually doing quite a good job at that. So, briefly, I don't see any reason why we should worry about the constructiveness of our press.
I think, Mr. Cheng, your answer to this last question actually wrap up your talk pretty well, because you're saying something positive about the Hong Kong press at the end. Okay, let's give a big hand to Mr. Zhang for sharing this. Thank you very much.